Welcome to Compassionate Care Conversations. My name is Scott Bradley. I'm the owner of Bradley & Son Funeral Homes and SimpleCremationNJ.com. I'm a third-generation funeral director, clinical social worker, and a certified psychoanalyst. My mission here is to speak with people who improve the quality of life of the traumatized, the dying, and their stressed-out caregivers. Today, it's my pleasure to introduce you to Lisa Cook-Bear. She's an attorney, educator, and social services professional, and the founder of LMR Elder Care. Lisa, I am so excited to hear about your professional journey because I read a little bit about you and you've covered a lot of ground. So I'm sure that's very helpful for your clients. So tell us about yourself and how you came to work in geriatric care management.
Perfect. Well, first of all, thank you so much for having me here today. I have worked since I started in 2006. I've been a partner with your various locations and things like that, and I can say that I've always had stellar support. I don't want to use the word service because it's more of an intimate type of a journey when we're dealing with end of life and certainly planning funerals and post-funeral, as a matter of fact, right? So I will say that my line into geriatric care management was not straight.
No.
When I went to college, I was in social services, but from the young person side. So my major was in child development. I went to school up in Boston, and I had a job set up for me when I graduated in, believe it or not, like a retail management type of a situation, which is kind of what I thought I wanted, but I really didn't want it. It came easy. And so when I passed on that job that I had already accepted, but decided it really wasn't for me, and felt that I really wanted to go to law school, but I needed some experience first. So I stayed up in Boston. Any of your viewers in Brookline, Allston, Boston, right between BU and Boston College, and it was like a ton of fun. And I worked as a case manager. And I worked for Boston Senior Home Care, which was the nonprofit version overseen by the, I think it was like the Executive Office of Elder Affairs or something like that. And my job basically back in the late 80s, I'm dating myself, was to keep people out of nursing homes and allow them to age in place in their own homes. And Massachusetts was incredibly forward thinking in that because it was both the preference of the patient or their client and their caregivers, but also it saved a ton of money. So it was both fiscally and practically responsible. Then I went to law school and I married my high school boyfriend, so it was very important for me to be back in the tri-state area. So I went to school, law school in New York while he was working. And when I was at law school, I actually started what's now still in place, the Public Justice Foundation. And what we did is we enabled law school students to take jobs in the public sector. And it was basically fundraising, but then we also got to, the fun part was deciding who the grants went to. So we got to select students that, we felt were going to, pursue a job in the public sector and make their own meaningful change there. When I graduated law school, I went to work for Legal Services of New York City. And that actually kind of brings me home to where I am today because I was doing Social Security disability law and SSI disability law. We were funded by the city of New York in order to identify persons who were incorrectly on the welfare in the welfare system and moved them over into the federal Social Security disability system. It was incredibly meaningful work, but it also, I was reading doctor's reports, attending administrative hearings, doing pro se classes with 75 people at a time. You know, and it was incredibly meaningful because I got to make help people who are homeless not be homeless anymore.
Yeah.
Because the way the Social Security system works is if you receive a retroactive benefit, that's often what it took to have people pay their security deposit in an apartment.
Right.
And so I think my entire journey has always been very much in the weeds. It's not, you know, I always look at people who are making policies, but they don't, and I'm sure you can appreciate this because you're very much boots on the ground, working with families, but it's not always the same.
Right.
And that really translates very much to my work today. I finished, after working in the city on the Lower East Side, had 2 kids, went back to my kind of teaching roots, worked as a teacher, and then in 2006 I started my company.
Wow.
And so I'm in my, I think, 22nd year of business as a geriatric care manager. Kind of what got me there at the time in 2006, there were, I don't know, 5 of us.
Yeah.
We didn't really have we had no big, you know, not a huge presence. People didn't then and still don't know what geriatric care management is, but I look forward to having more of a conversation today. But I had my own life experiences that had happened. So while I was working in the city, both my father and my grandmother were diagnosed with cancer, and I became a caregiver myself. And that's where we are today.
You've spoken a lot about what I'm just going to ask a question about.
Sure.
But I want to dig a little deeper into this. So I read your bio. You talked a lot about this sort of wandering through different professions, and I've done the same thing. So I started out as a funeral director. I went to graduate school in New York and got my social work degree, and I wanted to be a clinician, and I went and got my psychoanalytic certification. But over time, I've synthesized all that together, and you know, my come back to funeral service. We try to make funeral service not a transactional business, but more of an emotional business. You know, we attend to that part. So, reading your bio, I felt that we were kindred spirits in all the degrees and certifications you have, and so many assortments of fields in work. You've explored different aspects of caregiving and pulled them together into one line of work. So I'm curious about what motivated you to study these different areas of law and case management and elder care, and then how did you kind of pull them all together? How does it work for you?
So I think, thank you for that question. And, you know, when I first started my company, there was always this question, well, why aren't you practicing law? Why aren't you practicing law?
Right.
But when I went to law school, and, you know, you just said something, how you got your social work degree, I really wanted to get a JD MSW. Right. Because I was committed to working with people. And, you know, even, you know, what I do today, it's like and we'll talk more, I think, as we go on this morning, but I'm committed to helping people. And I know that sounds very cliche, but I believe that even though what I do and certainly what you do can be perceived as being depressing and what have you, I know that I make a difference in every single one of my clients' lives and their family and chosen family lives. I think that all of the things that I've done, you know, while I said it wasn't a straight path, it still got me to where I am today. Yeah. And I believe that it's really all interrelated. And what does it come back to? It comes back to education. It comes back to advocacy. I mean, I'm educating my clients, whether it's, you know, discussing benefits, discussing caregiving options, discussing, you know, talking about end of life, you know, bringing up, you know, the subject of hospice and funeral planning and all that, and things that come into play, patient advocacy, caregiver advocacy. One of my sweet spots with having the legal background is managing difficult families and family dynamics. Oftentimes, the families I work with, they have competing interests. And, I hate to say it, but a lot of times it comes down to financial.
Right.
And so, I can tell you 10 stories right now of what's going on with different families. This one needs a higher level of care, but the power of attorney doesn't want to pay for it, or they're in denial. But then you have like the caregiver who's boots on the ground, that's emotionally and physically being taxed with the out-of-state POA, deciding that, so it's like, that's where I put it all together.
Yeah.
So my social services background, my legal background, because I often say to my families, I say, I'll be the bad cop. I have no problem.
Yeah.
I'll talk to whomever. I had to, a few months ago, actually threaten the powers of attorney with Adult Protective Services if they didn't do what they had to do. And it definitely got their back up. But I know the process. I knew the words to use. I knew what to say. And we got the job done.
Yeah.
So sometimes it's action and sometimes it's inaction.
Yeah.
And just kind of identifying, really how to pull it together and knowing the words and reading the room.
Yeah.
I think.
You were saying earlier, it caught my attention, that the studying that you've done gives you this ability to understand policy, and also be in the weeds and help people use that policy.
Correct.
in their best way. And for a lot of people, that's very difficult to have both those perspectives. So
yeah, I mean, 100%. I mean, just, anecdotally, we have a situation in New Jersey, and I think it's really countrywide because I'm part of a listserv, a national listserv. So while I work in New Jersey, I often consult with people throughout the United States and, a handful of times out of the country, because the caregiver might be located in London or Canada, but their parent is here in Summit, New Jersey, something like that.
Right.
But yeah, so.
Yeah, and all those states have all different laws. So
they all have different laws. Patient advocacy is, I don't think you can go to school for patient advocacy. I mean, so I do a lot of speaking engagements, and when I speak to people, I'm a volunteer with AARP and Alzheimer's Association. I'm on the board of directors for the Commission for Case Management Certification. So we have about 52,000 certificates around the country. And that's actually been very cool for me, because I've done a lot of volunteer work, but nothing of this scale. But, I think that just it comes down to advocacy, and I have a lot of tools in my toolbox. And, I don't need to know the laws. And I'm not practicing as a lawyer, although I am barred and a licensed attorney. I'm using my education and my experience to identify the issues that are there and that will come up. And that's...
I'm impressed with that. I have a few friends that got their law degrees and aren't practicing attorneys. And that's a lot of work to go through to not be, your primary profession is being a lawyer. So I think that's great. And I am wondering, how has your legal experience as an attorney influenced care management? We talked a little bit about it, but I'm thinking that you're prepared to address complicated, or maybe it's more comprehensive issues for your clients because of this grouping of skills that you have.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely, I have many colleagues who I completely respect, and, we all have different skill sets.
Sure.
But, with me, I speak the same language. of the attorneys. I mean, as part of my onboarding, I want to look at their healthcare proxies and their financial powers of attorney, because I want to make sure that they're going to work when they need them to, and that we're not dealing with like a guardianship situation.
Yeah.
So, that might sound somewhat unimportant, but it's hugely important, because my goal is to always avoid litigation, to avoid guardianships, which is emotionally taxing, financially expensive, and very time consuming.
Yeah.
But, so I'm always trying to, kind of going back to my college days, it's always about education.
Yeah.
So it's educating families, educating clients, letting them know that they have choice and they have opportunities. So when I'm working with other attorneys, I speak their language.
Right.
A lot of things can come up with consent issues. I mean, you're a social worker, so you understand. So you're sitting, I have a client who's in the hospital right now, and we have the healthcare proxy who's making decisions, and all of a sudden family members showed up, and I'm like, it's very stressful. He's like, what do we do? And I'm like, first of all, what's their motivation? Is it a financial motivation? I happen to know this person has sitting on several $1 million. I said, is it, what is it? Is it just trying to show that they care? Like, what's going on here? And then I said to him, but I've seen your power of attorney and your healthcare proxy, and you're in charge. So if you have any problems, I'll talk to them. But what I want you to do is I want you to go to the nursing station and have them put in the chart they are not to share medical information with anybody but you.
Right.
Now, another care manager might not have thought of those things.
Right.
So, that's ready. Now I'm helping the caregiver, but I'm also helping the client.
Yeah. Because,
it's taking away the stress in that one little tiny part. I always have lookout to identify possible, issues with abuse or financial exploitation. Truthfully, a lot of times the numbers show that it's someone
Yeah.
and who you've let into your home, whether it's, I'm educating people on why not to hire a private caregiver.
Yeah.
I know that the cost can be a factor, and I can't tell someone how to spend their money, but if the resources are there, you want someone who's bonded, insured, and is going to have a backup plan, supervised by a nurse, is carrying, the homeowners, and not the homeowners, the workers' comp, things like that, because I educate my clients. You don't need someone falling and suing you.
Yeah. But it's been amazing to hear this story, because what keeps coming up is education, and that you're educated, you then transfer that education to people to take care of themselves or their family member, and that's power. So
100%.
Thank you for giving people power.
And that's what it is. I mean, it's really about, changing the conversation. It's about letting people know that they have choice, and that it's not, they don't have to go to a facility. They can ask questions. Excuse me. They don't have to have a procedure done. Right. And let's have that conversation with, I remember last year I was standing in Lowe's over here in Morris Plains, and I'm on the phone. It's a Sunday afternoon at 3:00. We just gotten our tomato plants. And I'm speaking to the surgeon, and I'm speaking to the social worker, and I'm speaking to the 2 adult children. And so 5 of us are having this conference call to decide whether or not the client should have a particular surgery. Mm-hmm. And the person has dementia. And so I'm asking the questions. Well, A, is the surgery a sure thing? Doctor says no. B, and a lot of times I know what the answer is, but you have to bring it out to get people to say the word so that the responsible agents can make informed decisions. So will this help the dementia? No. Will this potentially hurt the dementia? Because I now know that they're going to be under anesthesia for 2 hours to do this procedure. Absolutely. And can this resolve on its own? Yes. And by the way, let's pull out the advanced directives, sometimes called living will. What does this person decide that they wanted to happen? And it always comes back. People lose sight of it. I've sat in meetings with 5 siblings trying to decide what mom should be doing upstairs at, St. Barnabas Hospital for her care. And I look at them and I say, well, does she have capacity? And they say, yeah. So she can make decisions herself? Yeah. I said, what are we doing here? Let's go upstairs and talk to her.
Yeah.
So it's like, really seeing the forest through the trees. I think that's like a legal term, but it's very much that.
Well, good for you. In the next episode, we're going to learn about a little bit more about your company. Thank you.
Thank you.